Tuesday marks exactly 4 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On the anniversary, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said the country has preserved its statehood, while allies promise continued support and peace on Kyiv's terms. Talks between Kyiv and Moscow were relaunched last year by the United States, but have so far failed to stop the fighting.
1462 дні повномасштабної війни, 12 років від початку агресії Росії, для когось ціле життя. Безумовно, ми всі хочемо, щоб війна закінчилась, але ніхто не дозволить, аби закінчилась Україна. Ми хочемо миру, сильного, гідного, довгого. Путін не досягнув своїх цілей, не зламав українців, не переміг в цій війні. Ми зберегли Україну, і ми зробимо все, щоб здобути мир і щоб була справедливість.
Leaders of Ukraine's allies, including European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, and Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson traveled to Ukraine to mark the anniversary. Many European countries are increasing their defense spending in anticipation of a possible confrontation with Russia. Over the past years, Moscow often threatened Europe while refusing to come to an agreement over its invasion of Ukraine. The fallout from the war has been immense. The higher end of the estimated number of soldiers killed, wounded, or missing on both sides is 1.8 million, of which Russia suffered around 1.2 million casualties. Meanwhile, 2025 marked the deadliest year for civilians in Ukraine, and this winter the country suffered the worst energy crisis since the start of the invasion.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy called on the EU to unblock the 90 billion euros loan to Ukraine and to speed up his country's accession to the EU. Ukraine president addressed MEPs on video during an extraordinary session of the European Parliament commemorating 4 years of Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Protect ourselves. There is an important decision on the table, 90 billion euros in support for Ukraine over 2 years. This is a real financial guarantee of our security and our resilience, and it must be implemented. And it is important for us to receive a clear date for joining the EU.
Hungary blocked the loan to Ukraine and new sanctions against Moscow over an unrelated energy dispute. As a result, MEPs slammed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán.
El 20º paquete de sanciones es imprescindible y quien hoy bloquea las sanciones y la ayuda de Ucrania está debilitando Europa y fortaleciendo al agresor. Viktor Orbán no encarna la paz, encarna la impunidad.
In the meantime, EU and European leaders joined Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Kyiv to attend a ceremony honoring fallen Ukrainian soldiers during the war.
Poland's Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski has accused Hungary of deepening its obstruction of EU support for Ukraine, describing Budapest's latest move to block a 90 billion euro loan and fresh sanctions as an escalation that favors the Kremlin. Speaking to Euronews' flagship Europe Today morning program, Sikorski said Hungary had repeatedly chosen energy arrangements that indirectly benefit Moscow.
Hungary has had plenty of opportunities over the years to do what the rest of Europe has already done, namely to sign long-term contracts for the delivery of oil and gas from the south, without having to buy it directly from Putin, and thereby oiling Putin's war machine.
Sikorski pointed to previous Hungarian blockages, including the suspension of around 7 billion euros from the European Peace Facility funds intended to reimburse member states that supplied military equipment to Ukraine. With U.S. support for Kyiv increasingly uncertain, Sikorski argued that Europe's leverage should not be underestimated.
Well, I think our cards, to use terminology that is close to Donald Trump's heart, are quite strong. We have supported Ukraine more than the United States. We are now the sole source of support for the Ukrainian state, for the Ukrainian armed forces, for the Ukrainian defense industry. And sooner or later will come a point where the United States and Putin will realize that Ukraine will make its own decisions based on the support that it has from Europe, and therefore that Europe's view and Europe's security interests cannot be ignored.
Over the past 4 years, Russia forcefully deported at least 20,000 Ukrainian children. Kyiv managed to bring back 2,000 of them. Among them is Vlad Buryak. He was 16 when Russian forces abducted him at the checkpoint as he tried to evacuate from occupied Melitopol to Zaporizhia. Vlad was taken first to the filtration camp and then to a Russian prison. He spent 90 days in captivity.
One of my job was cleaning torture room. After torturing, in this special room was lots of bloods, was lots of like medicine bandages and everything. And after torturing, I most of time cleaned torturing room. After blood, just mop the floor, take off some rubbish from this room. Lots of Russian soldiers and lots of Russian special forces who tortured people. They say that Ukraine not already exists.
Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab placed the number of deported Ukrainian children closer to 35,000. Moscow claimed that the number could be as high as 700,000.
The actions of the Russian Federation towards Ukrainian children are not isolated incidents or humanitarian decisions gone wrong. They are part of a deliberate strategy, a state policy of demographic engineering and identity erasure. This is the arc of Russia's design: isolate, reprogram, deploy. If we speak about the scale, the true numbers are only known to Russia.
According to Ukrainian officials, over 1.5 million Ukrainian children currently remain under Russian occupation.
Увеличение кратное, это ни для кого не секрет. Цифры конкретно не хотел бы, наверное, раскрывать, да, все-таки это небольшое, пускай небольшого предприятия, но коммерческая тайна. Ну, было непросто, но тем не менее мы саккумулировали нужную сумму, перечислили ее. Нормально смотрим пока вперед.
Начались процессы, связанные с использованием. Понимаем прекрасно, что страна находится в непростой ситуации. Мы понимаем. Простите чем-нибудь. Пришлете что-нибудь. Многие закроются или уйдут в тень. Вот подскажите, как нам быть в такой ситуации и вот в условиях резкого изменения налогового законодательства? Бизнес от перехода на новые системы налогообложения ни в коем случае не должен пострадать. И дочери, и вашему делу, которое называется таким. Борис, как дела? Хорошо. Там у нас тортик свадебный.
There appears to be no discussion about returning to the situation where small businesses did not have to deal with VAT. I think that's now a permanent change, whatever the rate.
Мне страшно за завтрашний день. Таких эмоций, честно говоря, мы никогда не испытывали.
Telegram founder Pavel Durov is being investigated as part of a criminal case on suspicion of aiding terrorist activities, according to 2 Russian outlets who did not cite a source. Both articles, which mention Durov's criminal case, are written in an identical tone and use similar expressions. In particular, they state that as a result of terrorist attacks carried out using the Telegram messaging app, journalists Daria Dugina and Vladlen Tatarsky, along with 9 high-ranking Russian military personnel, were killed, while 4 others were wounded. The articles also state that since 2022, the Russian security service has prevented 475 terrorist attacks against the military, government officials, and infrastructure facilities, all of which were claimed to have been planned using Telegram.
France has banned access to government ministers for U.S. Ambassador Charles Kushner after he failed to show up for a meeting to discuss comments made by the Trump administration about the killing of a far-right activist in Lyon. According to a statement from the French Foreign Ministry, Kushner would not be allowed direct access to members of the French government. The statement, however, added he would be permitted to continue his diplomatic duties and have exchanges with officials. Foreign Minister Jean-Noel Barrot had summoned Kushner, the father of U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law and advisor Jared Kushner, after the U.S. Embassy in Paris reposted comments by the Trump administration about Quentin Derongue. Derongue died from head injuries following clashes between leftist and far-right supporters on the sidelines of a 12 February protest against a politician from the left-wing France En Bout LFI party in Lyon. The 23-year-old activist killing highlighted a climate of deep political tension in France ahead of next year's presidential vote. Kushner had already failed to show up for a meeting he was summoned for in August over his letter to French President Emmanuel Macron, alleging the country did not do enough to combat anti-Semitism.